Hey, welcome to the Wheel Friends Podcast, the comedy podcast that exists in the world of bicycling. I'm your host, Craig Richards. Over the weekend, I got to go to Ladies Army 9 bike polo tournament. I've been hyping it up for weeks. Unfortunately, I didn't capture a whole lot of audio worth making an episode out of, so sorry. But I will say it was some of the fiercest bike polo I have ever seen. Like, back in the polo episode, I explained how that whole body contact thing works. When I imagine mallet on mallet, I always thought of it as just the mallets smacking into each other. I full on watched this player hook her mallet onto somebody else's and just yank it out of her arms. And wow, it was impressive. And then it's a good tactic when your opponent has the ball near the wall to try and pin them close to the wall. But some of the pinning I saw was just incredible. It was just so in your face. It was great. Shout out to everybody who played in Ladies Army 9. So if you saw our Instagram over the weekend, there was some of that. If you were looking at our Instagram account yesterday, October 3rd, you would have seen me participating in my first Alley Cat race. So we're gonna talk about that today because I was mic'd up. So we will be able to hear that, and hopefully it sounds as exciting as it was. An Alley Cat is an unsanctioned bicycle street race that takes place typically in cities that are popular among bike messengers and other urban cyclists. Alley Cat races have existed for about 30 years. They basically started as drag races down alleys, but evolved to start mimicking what a shift would be like for a bike messenger. Before the race, riders are given a manifest which lists all the checkpoints. The amount of detail in the manifest comes down to the host, but bare minimum, it's a list of addresses. Typically, there's a person at each checkpoint with a stamp to mark the manifest when a racer arrives. Depending on the organizer's rules, a challenge may have to be completed in order to get your manifest stamped. First to complete the manifest wins. The race I participated in was called SnapCat 2, and it was organized by a local rider, Benson Mason.
What's up, Benson?
You made it.
I
Tuesday
did.
Nights.
Benson's rules were slightly different, so instead of doing several stops as quickly as possible, we were given a list of stops worth different amounts of points and had to photograph them. There were 19 total checkpoints that were optional. 10 of them were red and they were worth 2 points. They were at the middle of town. There were 5 green checkpoints that were further out of town and they were worth 4 points each. The blue checkpoints were the furthest away, but they were worth 6 points each, but there were only 4 of them. Racers needed to hit a checkpoint from each color or at least 3 green ones to finish.
Craig, manifest. $2, sign your name.
Goodbye, $2. I'll never see you again.
You might get first, second, or third. And that's cool too.
Benson released the manifest early yesterday morning, and I looked over it. So I was looking at how the points were set up, and it occurred to me that the blue points probably weren't going to be that worth it overall because they were so far out of town that basically, in order to ride out there to get them, you're going to be sacrificing a lot of time that you could be getting other points.
The first person to hand me their manifest in under an hour and a half with their set points, what they think they got is the first person that I write down as first. And so if another person comes in and has the same amount of points in under the hour and a half, the person who handed me that first, if they're tied, that's the winner. That's how we're going to do it, right? Like, pretty straight up. So you're incentivized to be back here, like, fast, like, get your points and come back, but you only have an hour and a half to do it. There's no pushing the limit.
So we stood around there for a long time waiting for people to show up. Like, I'm looking over my manifest, and all I see is just addresses, and I decided to use that time to get a pen and look up every address, and so yeah, that's definitely a part of the Alley Cat race experience.
Can I borrow a pen? My brain isn't one for addresses.
I gave you guys a map.
Yeah, but I had to work today, and it was a serious day of work, not a fuck around day of work.
It's kind of a fuck around day of work.
I was trying to share this information with Avery once he arrived, and yeah, so some of that, the notes didn't translate well, but luckily we had teamed up there. Colluding and forming partnerships is allowed in Alley Cats. It's not discouraged. It's totally legit. Personally, I like it because you're not out there alone playing in traffic.
Hey, where are we going first?
You have it written down already. Okay, Calder, behind the castle. What castle?
Oh, that's some of the notes are for just landmarks. Basically behind the Masonic Temple.
IFC division.
Yeah.
That's south. Okay. Okay, I'm thinking we take the south ones, even though that's probably one of them.
Last time you took the picture of the address where the manifest.
Or we could hit Gray Line up. But I think we need to get those 3 of these because we don't want to fuck around with that.
Yeah. That is most importante.
So we need to get 3 of those. Let's hit those big ones down south, right? Skate park. What's the Lake Drive Cat Ribs?
Ooh, top of the zoo hill.
What's Cat Ribs? Which one?
Oh, that's
Well, College is north, so we're doing Cat
southeast. Okay, so we're gonna knock out those 2 first.
These
Yeah,
two?
let's do the hill.
Aim
Just for
straight for the top of the hill.
fuck. All right.
Yeah, is there somewhere we should be going on the way to there? To be
Oh
doing
yeah,
that?
that's.
They all thought.
I ain't paying attention.
Northwest, we should do this on the way back. John Street, Twin State. That's all east. That's downtown, right?
Yeah.
We should be getting Bridge and Fulton and Camp Out.
And then gotta get the skate park.
And this
Okay.
Riverfront Circle steps.
So we're starting northwest and then working our way.
Yeah, let's go northwest and then go down to the skate park, and then out to Cat Ribs, and then maybe we can hit some of this in the back.
Eventually, though, more riders did show up, and there were about 7 of us total, so there was a whopping $14 on the line. Anybody's game. So at the start of an Alley Cat race, it's customary to be away from your bicycle. Everybody's like either lined up somewhere, and then they got to sprint to their bike, and then the race officially begins.
That's fine. SnapCat. Go.
Now, since this is an audio podcast, not a visual one, I think you're going to just have to take my word for it that Avery and I waited for every light to turn green and that no laws were broken. But I can definitely see how it could happen in a race. Oh, also, Art Prize is still happening, so downtown is crazy full of people.
I think this is one of them.
So, like, within a minute, Avery and I were already at the first stop.
I think it's 55. Oh yeah, 55 right there. Gotta get the camera.
I'm struggling because I'm trying to do it on Instagram the whole time. I'm like caring about this podcast and content, and I'm worried that if I miss this shot, it's not going to upload. And since I wasn't saving them to my phone, if I returned to Benson and had no saved photographs, that would have been a real bump. But like before we knew it, we had already knocked down 3 of the red checkpoints downtown and banked like 6 points.
Which one is that?
I don't know, but it's 333.
Oh, River House.
So after we had knocked out those, it was time to start heading toward this hill behind John Ball Zoo, and it's this massive hill, and it was the tallest climb on the whole race. It was the first checkpoint worth 4 points, and the first of our 3 required green checkpoints.
All right, biggest hill climb in the race, as far as we're concerned.
En route, we saw Jesse, another racer who was on a specialized road bike that had electronic shifters, or as Avery called it, doping.
Hey, Jesse.
I did manage to beat him up the hill.
Hi, Jesse. How's that hill?
Of course, I didn't bring a water bottle because I'm Craig, and I definitely need water. And I get to this drinking fountain at the top of the hill, and the water is barely getting a half a centimeter off the bubbler. And so, in order to get a drink of water, which I direly needed, I almost had to kiss that thing, which is the grossest thing I can imagine in a public park.
Oh, you fucker. Fuck that drinking fountain.
Our next stop was the DIY skate park on the other side of the landfill, which only sounds disgusting. It used to be a landfill, but now it is sort of like a nature area with a super wide bike path, and it's getting better.
I wonder if this is actually the most direct route. By the freeway, it seems like it.
From where we were, I think so. And that'll be our second. It's only been 20 minutes. 225 Granville is Founders.
Okay, that's on the way back from the skate park.
Yeah.
Then we could take Terry out to the lake.
And then that'll be the last of the required ones. And then we can just head back, knock everything else out nearby.
John, what's the South Division? We could get that on the line.
Oh, that's the diocese. We're good.
Yeah, I think we have a good route, even if it's very...
I like it this way.
On the way through, we crossed over the Grand River and rode over some train tracks, and there was definitely a big train, and I remember thinking, oh good, that this could be an issue.
And if we got a ton of time, then we will
like all the way up to Grayland. But I doubt it.
That train might be an issue though.
Train could stop us. That's so rare. Though.
So we hit the skate park for 4 points, bringing our total points up to 16, and we have a ton of time to spare. So we start biking north, and sure enough, that frickin' train I saw, there it is.
Train.
Which way is it coming?
I don't know.
Right up along the tracks up to Delta.
We'll see what it looks like.
Definitely from the left.
Oh, that's a long one.
So we have to detour further south and decide to ditch Founders altogether. We'll get that later. So we detour across the expressway and over the train tracks and start heading north on Division toward the Catholic Diocese. And it's still further away, and the downtown market was to our left. So Avery and I turn left looking for this checkpoint near the downtown market. So Grand Rapids is in 4 quadrants, divided north and south at Fulton Street and east and west at Division. So it's not uncommon for there to be 2 identical addresses, but on the north and south side of town.
7-Eleven Ionia is the other one. 7-Eleven Ionia Avenue, northwest. Shit, Avery, that's northwest. My note said downtown. I think I entered southwest when I was looking it up.
So between that and the train, we've already set ourselves back kind of a ways.
Probably.
Wow, the most impressive man.
We finally make it to the Catholic Diocese, and yeah, I did see a listener and fellow bicyclist Sam out with his husband.
Hey Sam, how's it going? Good, we're racing right now.
Cool, I hope you win. Hey, listeners.
There wasn't a whole lot of time to chat because, the race was still on. So after the diocese, we make it all the way across town to Lake Avenue, Marika Trebes, the 3rd green checkpoint. Then we work our way back into town, hit up this checkpoint on State Street. Then we finally make it to Founders, hit our last checkpoint at the welding services place.
There's Jesse.
How you doing? How many points you got?
So we hit our final checkpoint at Chase Bank, right near downtown Grand Rapids. So we end at Chase Bank across from Calder Plaza, and Avery and I are sitting at 32 points with under a half hour to spare. Our last checkpoint was at Gray Line Brewing, basically on the other side of town, and we weren't quite sure if we could make it without risking disqualification, so we decided just to bank our 32 points.
So I'm going to count up Avery's points first.
That's fair.
We got the same point.
As long as I didn't miss any on Instagram.
How'd it go?
Pretty fun. We got all the close ones and then 3 of the next ones. And pulled it in 20 minutes early.
Figured we'd bank as
Probably
opposed to.
not the best strategy, but all the other ones were too far.
This is
to
this
make in the
this is playing the game if they DQ themselves.
right now.
So Avery and I are the first to arrive, and I'm pretty optimistic. I thought I would play the long game, assuming somebody might go for the blue checkpoints, but of course nobody did it because they were so far out of town. Nobody thought they were worth it. So I'm sitting at second for a while. One of the Pats shows up. He also got 32 points, so he's sitting at third. This other Pat shows up on his exact same all-city fixed gear bike. He, of course, went to some places that were not actually checkpoints, so I think he netted like 27 points total.
So I got Gray Line.
That's Gray Line. Yep.
On Alpine, which is the YMCA one. West side on Fulton.
Guess you found it.
Oh, damn. The Z's one? No.
Across the street from Z's.
Honestly, like, you're right there. I'm gonna just say that you got it.
And then Marine, like south of town. Oh, no.
Good south.
Oh, yeah, I went way south.
That's north.
That's north. God damn it. Dude, what's it?
1,600 calories southeast.
Dude, it's 1600 southeast.
But Jesse comes in at 36 points, but one of his pictures is blurry, so Benson docks him 2 points, which I thought was fair. So then the last two, Quentin and the guy whose name I didn't get, show up, and they had partnered up, so they both come in at 36 points because they were able to make it to Gray Line Brewing. In fact, they stopped and had a beer at Gray Line Brewing, which that's some cocky stuff. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that tale of my first Alley Cat race. Thanks to Avery for being a sweet partner. Thanks for Benson for hosting this cool Alley Cat. And good job, everybody who raced. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Be sure to follow us on social media, especially Instagram. I'm pretty good at using Instagram. So if you want to see things like bike polo and Alley Cat racing, that'll be there. For more information on Alley Cat racing, just Google it, I guess. I don't really have a good resource. If you want to help the show out, you can share it, you can rate us on iTunes, or you can just tell a friend about it. Be safe out there, and as always, go ride your bike.